Hello and good morning. My name is Mindy Christine and welcome to Unity North Tampa. Thank you for joining us today. Marian Guizdala has a welcoming song for us.
No matter where you come from, no matter where you're going, here's a place where you can take comfort in the knowing. Whether if you've come to stay a while or just passing through, this door is open to you. Come and let's be silent. Come and share a hug. Come, let's pray together. Come, love and be loved. From the blissed out to the turned out, from the pampered to the abused, this door is open to you. Come on in. Come on in. The God in us recognizes the God in you. Whether you're black or white, gay or straight, Christian, Muslim, or Jew, this door is open to you. If there's some sort of trouble, or pain you're going through, remember that you are not alone. There's someone here for you. As an individualization of divine point of view, this door is open. This door is open. This door is open. I say, this door is open to you. Come on in. Come on in. The God in us recognizes the God in you. Whether you're black or white, gay or straight, Christian, Muslim, or Jew, this door is open to you.
Thank you, Marian. That's one of our favorite songs because it so beautifully expresses our philosophy of open hearts and open minds. So please join me as we take those thoughts into prayer. As we close our outer eyes, we center within our hearts and take a nice gentle breath, relaxing into that peace within us that is never disturbed by the things of the world. And here we connect with that power of divine love, comforting all of those who have lost loved ones to the pandemic and to other circumstances. We know each one who is making their transition is securely enfolded in divine peace and love as their spirit moves on in its eternal journey. We give thanks for that magnificent power of divine strength that is sustaining everyone who is unselfishly serving others in need, and all who are staying strong for their families. We acknowledge and call forth that light of divine wisdom and understanding so that we can see beyond traumatic, chaotic circumstances, knowing that there is a divine order at work within each of us for the good of all, no matter how it looks in this moment. We consciously connect with the divine, our Christ within, our higher self, aligning with that pure divine essence that we are, so that we can be at peace, so that we can be compassionate with ourselves and with others as we move through this very important time. By centering in love and peace, we add to the love and peace in the world, and we make a difference in a very positive way. And so it is. Amen. Well, it is great that we are able to be with you during these times of challenge and difficulty. We are so grateful that we have these spiritual principles that can help us stay centered and calm and confident spiritually in times like this. It is very important as we move through this very crucial time in human history, really, and our spiritual unfoldment into new levels of consciousness, that we can stand together spiritually and support one another in expressing our highest and best. And so that's our intention for being with you today. And bless you.
Please join me in declaring our opening affirmation. There is only one presence and one power in my life and in the universe, God, the good, omnipotent. The Daily Word is a sacred devotion that inspires us to express our spiritual nature. We ask that you censor within and listen deeply as we share today's message. I will read the Daily Word in English, and Natalia Rodriguez will read the message in Spanish. Divine order is always unfolding in my life and in the world. As spring ripens into summer each year, new leaves transform bare trees into canopies of green. Tiny seedlings grow into sturdy plants and decorate the landscape with an array of colorful blossoms. I marvel at the divine order demonstrated as the earth renews itself. I recognize that even as the earth appeared barren in wintertime, new life was preparing to spring forth. I notice this pattern in my life. I may be demonstrating visible growth in my life, or like the earth in winter, it may seem that my life is stagnant and barren. I remember that as the seasons of nature change, so do the seasons of my life. And even when it is not apparent to me, I know that divine order is always unfolding in my life and in the world. The earth produces of itself first the stalk, then the head, then the full grain in the head. Mark 4:28. Thank you.
Buenos días. Domingo 14 de junio del 2020, orden divino. El orden divino obra en mi vida y en el mundo siempre. Así como experimentan las estaciones del año y las fases de la luna, mi vida sigue un plano ordenado divinamente. Me maravilló al contemplar el diseño magnífico de lo creado. Todo en la tierra fluye en un ciclo de crecimiento, cambio y renovación. Reconozco los patrones en mi vida. Puede que en algunas áreas sea tiempo de crecimiento y en otros tiempos de quietud. La actividad divina me guía tanto como en los momentos de reto como en los momentos de gozo. Voy en pos de mis metas con la certeza de que todo sigue un orden divino. Mantengo mi gozo y mi ánimo tanto en momentos de siembra y espera como en los de cosecha y deleite. Yo soy paciente. Sé que el cumplimiento perfecto de mi propósito es parte del plan de Dios. Y es que la tierra da fruto por sí misma. Primero sale una hierba, luego la espiga, y después el grano se llena en la espiga. Marcos 4:28. And let's prepare for meditation with the song Speak Only Love. Thank you.
Love, love, I speak only love. Love, love, I speak only love. From the morning's first light to the last star at night, let my words speak only love. Peace, peace, I speak only peace. Peace, peace, I speak only peace. From the morning's first light to the last star at night, let my words speak only peace.
So I invite you to join me in this time of meditation. we begin by closing our outer eyes to bring our attention inward. And I invite you to find that comfortable position in your chair, sitting with your back straight to allow for the flow of breath and the flow of energy as we sit in alert attention to the divine essence within ourselves. I invite you to allow your shoulders to relax and just allow a feeling of relaxation to flow over your body, noticing if there are any tight or uncomfortable places. Just send your love and attention to those areas, breathing into them so that you may relax completely. And we also center in by letting go of any concerns, any worries, any upsets, that we may experience the stillness within, that place of perfect peace that is a part of our spiritual inheritance. And we relax even more with deep conscious breathing. So I invite you to exhale fully, contracting the belly muscles and just exhaling fully and completely. And then breathing in deeply down into the belly. Let the belly expand as you breathe in. Filling the chest with air also. And then exhale again, fully and completely, releasing and letting go. And then again, we breathe in deeply, filling the belly and the chest with air, with that breath of spirit. And we let that breath go, releasing and relaxing. One more time, we breathe in deeply, opening to that breath of life, to the presence of spirit within. And then we exhale this time with a sigh. Using sound and breath to release and relax. And now I invite you to allow the breath to find a natural rhythm as we continue to keep our attention inward in our hearts. And I invite you to hold your attention there. And you may want to place one or both hands over your heart, reminding yourself that this area behind the sternum in your chest is more than just the place of the physical heart, for it is also the energetic heart, that spirit of divine love, that vibration of divine love that is who you are as a spiritual being. And no matter what has happened, no matter what fears, doubts, or sadness may have been in your heart through this human experience, know that that power of divine love can heal every hurt, can release sadness and grief, and can let go of fear so that you may be at peace and be the greatest expression of love that you can be. For it is our purpose here and now to be the very expression of love. Love that heals fear and resentment and hatred. Love that heals emotional wounds and heals the body brings the mind into harmony and peace. And it is that power of love that we rely on. That power of love that we are here to express. Nos centramos en nuestros corazones y recordamos que nuestro propósito es expresar el amor divino, porque necesitamos en nuestra vida y en nuestro mundo. Estamos aquí a expresar el amor divino en cada circunstancia de la vida. We are here to hold that vibration of divine love in every circumstance. In the face of the pandemic, in the fear of economic trial, in the chaos of change, seeing our beliefs challenged, having our very physical lives threatened, feeling the stress of so much change at the same time that we may feel confused and lost at times. It is that power of divine love within us that will keep us on course, that will lift us out of confusion, that heals the mind and the body and the emotions, that helps us see clearly when there seems to be so much separation. It is the eyes of love that see past the illusion of separation, remembering that we are one in spirit, each one valuable, loved equally, guided and protected, that each of us is precious in the mind of God. We remember that we are not forgotten. And in those moments when we feel separated from the one, let us remember the words of the Master, I am with you always. Because we are spiritual beings, we are one with that one essence, that one universal cosmic consciousness. We cannot be alone, for we live within the divine, and it lives within us. There can never be separation, for we are always the very power of divine love here and now. And it is important that we also love ourselves during this time, being compassionate and forgiving with ourselves, realigning with the truth of the infinite and magnificent power of divine love within us. That is the answer to every challenge and difficulty, giving us strength and faith and clarity and peace and wholeness and abundance. Just take a deep breath and take that truth in. No matter the circumstances of life in any moment, divine light and love within you is greater than any of these. And so as we prepare to go into the silence, I invite you to find that thought that lifts you up in this moment. Perhaps it is the thought that I am never alone. The thought that I am valuable and important. That I am here on purpose. purpose. That divine love is my very nature. I am divine love in expression. I am kind to myself and others. And I see with the eyes of love, being accepting, non-judgmental, being compassionate and understanding. Perhaps you just want to repeat that word love over and over silently. Or the I am love, that affirmation of your truth. I am loved and I am loving. Choose that thought that lifts your spirit as we take time for a few moments in the silence to establish that truth within our hearts for a few moments in the silence. As you hold these thoughts in your heart, you may even feel a warmth or a vibration of energy there. Knowing that you are activating that infinite power of divine love that you are. You don't have to search for it or ask for it to be active in you. It is already there. Cuando escogimos palabras y pensamientos de amor divino, estamos expresando la energía más alta, la energía del amor divino. And as we hold thoughts of truth about love within us, active in us, expressing as us, we are lifted into a higher vibration of love, that we may think those loving thoughts, speak those loving words, and take those loving actions. For that is why we are here. Take a deep breath again, bringing that truth into your heart and into your mind. We give thanks for that power of divine love healing our lives and our world. We give thanks that all of us, every person alive here and now, is awakening to their truth of knowing that they are here to be the expression of love that we need. This is why we have come. This is why we are here. We give thanks for this opportunity to think the loving thought, speak the loving word, take the loving action that is needed. And knowing as we do that, we are blessed greatly. We can claim that love for and that truth for ourselves and all others. And so it is. And so I invite you now to take a moment to bring to mind those you would like to hold in prayer. And as you think of them, do not think of their challenge or their weakness, because there are no weaknesses in spirit. Remember that they are powerful, creative, loving beings, spiritual beings, having this human experience. And no matter the circumstances or challenges that they are experiencing, they are much greater than these circumstances. So as you call these loved ones to mind, speak their names either silently out or out loud, and see them as the wholeness of God, the love and light of God, the power and strength of God, the abundance and well-being and joy of God. See their truth right now as you think and speak their names. And so as we speak these names, we hold them in that light of love, knowing that they are the power of God in expression, as are you. And so it is. Amen. And I invite you now to join me in affirming, as Jesus taught us to pray, our Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we have also forgiven our debtors. And leave us not in temptation, but deliver us from error. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Truth, truth, I speak only truth. Truth, truth, I speak only truth. From the morning's first light till the last star at night, let my words speak only truth. Love, love, I speak only love. Love, love, I speak only love. From the morning's first light to the last star at night, let my words speak only love. Let my words speak only love.
So we have been dealing with a pandemic. We have been dealing with economic difficulties, to say the least. Many people are struggling and suffering because of the changes in our economy because of the pandemic. And then in addition to those major challenges and upheavals in our lives, we've also had recent racially charged violence and, of course, a lot of demonstrations in response to that. And so there's a lot that we're dealing with right now. But today I want to talk a little bit about the very sensitive subject about the racial inequality and unrest in our country. And how can we deal with that? How can we be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem? It's pretty obvious there is a lot of energy, of course, around this topic. And there's a lot of built up resentments, a lot of built up fear. And we know that prejudice and violence come from fear. Fear that we are somehow not safe because of interactions with different cultures, different ideologies. We may be fearful that we won't have enough money, enough food, enough safety, enough opportunities for success in our lives. There's so many fears that come up because of what seem to be differences in different segments of our population of our world. And there's been a global response to what's going on in our country, which means that this topic, this situation, is up for healing. And that's what's really happening right now. This challenge that is putting a real strain on our medical systems, and is putting a strain on our economic systems, and now further tensions going on about relationships with one another. All of this is a part of the change that we are going through, and some describe it as the breakdown before the breakthrough. And truly, this is an opportunity for us to be more aware, of how we can be, as I said, a part of the solution and not more of a part of the enduring problem that we are all facing as we learn to live together in this world, in this human experience. Our song today, "This Door is Open to You," is a reflective of Unity's principles and beliefs about diversity. Unity embraces diversity of all kinds and believes that because of the power of divine love, because of our oneness with each other spiritually, that we do have the ability to live in harmony with one another, embracing our differences, honoring our differences. So I'd like to read to you Unity's diversity statement. Unity leadership says, "We believe that all people are created with sacred worth, and therefore we recognize the importance of serving all people within the Unity family in spiritually and emotionally caring ways. We strive for ministries, publications, and programs to reach out to all who seek Unity support and spiritual growth. It is imperative that our ministries and outreach be free of discrimination on the basis of race, color, gender, age, creed, religion, national origin, ethnicity, physical disability, gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation. It is our sincere desire to ensure that all of our Unity organizations are non-discriminatory and support diversity." And what a great statement. And I agree that we need to have a vision of what we want to see in our world. Well, and truthfully, Unity has not always been in that role of acceptance of diversity to that degree. And in fact, in the 1900s, there was a difference in the way the women in Unity were trained for ordination, and the way the men were trained. This was in the early 1900s. And so those differences became resolved when the women wanted equal education and the same training as the men were getting. Fast forward about 40-something years to the 50s, and we had another conflict arise in diversity because African Americans were not allowed to live in the quarters at Unity Village when they were students in the ministerial program. And Johnny Coleman, one of our outstanding Unity ministers, was in the program at that time, and she was instrumental in getting Unity to change its policies so that African American students could live on the grounds like others were living on the grounds while they studied to become a minister. She went on to be an outstanding leader for civil rights, as well as a great minister for Unity, teaching Unity principles. She became the first African American president of the Association of Unity Churches. And then when I was in seminary in the 90s, it was the issue of discrimination against our LGBTQ students and their partners. And at that time, marriage for LGBTQ couples was not allowed and was not legal. And so we noticed, my class and the class ahead of us, that those who were gay couples were not able to invite their partners to our formal functions. And so we went to the leadership and said, this needs to change. This is not okay. We're not embracing diversity in this area. And so I'm very proud to say that we were a part of getting that change in Unity policy. Now, it's embarrassing to admit that we've not been embracing diversity in that way for our entire history. However, every organization is reflective of the culture that it comes out of. All of us have been programmed in some way about our beliefs about one another, about cultural diversity, about racial relationships and interactions. And so Unity itself has admitted, when it was brought to its attention, that we were not right about this and we need to change. Indeed, most children are programmed at a very young age to have this idea of separation or difference because of the way people look, the differences in our appearances, in our skin color, in our cultural practices. And in fact, research has shown, surprisingly, that even 2-year-olds already are beginning to form ideas of differences between themselves and others. Physical differences, perhaps language differences, and certain behaviors and social norms that even 2-year-olds pick up on. And I know that I received my share of programming about differences between people. And I didn't understand them when I was growing up. I questioned a lot of what I was being taught. And especially in the area of racial differences, because I didn't understand, nor did I accept what I was being taught, that there were differences between white people and black people. And black people were being treated differently. And I didn't agree with that. And I know that I remember going back to the 1960s when my mother and father wanted me to come home from college to make sure that I would vote against the Civil Rights Voting Act. And I didn't say a word, I just came home immediately and I voted for the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Act. But there were other ways I was programmed too. In our tiny little country town in Alabama, about 500 people. The biggest town in the county was 2,000 people, and that's where we went to school. We were bused into the county seat, as they call it. And I remember my parents pointing out as we would drive around this bigger community and say, oh, that family over there, they're Catholic. That family over there, they're Jewish. They're different. And I was going to school with those children of those families, and I didn't see the differences, and I didn't accept it. I just kept quiet. All of us have been affected by these beliefs that we are somehow very different from one another. And yes, we are different, and we learn to embrace and honor and value those differences in culture, in our languages, in our traditions, in our gifts, knowing that every person is valuable, every person is important, equally valuable. These are the spiritual principles that we learn in Unity. And I also think about the great teachings of Martin Luther King that have greatly influenced my understanding of how we can deal with the separation that's being taught, that these ideas that we know are not in keeping with honoring diversity and having harmony in diversity. We know that violence and prejudice come from fear, as I said, being afraid that we won't be valued, being afraid that we are not safe, and there's good reason for that many times, that we won't have the opportunities that other people have. There are many ways that we have fear about not being okay, not being safe, not being good enough, not having equal opportunities, that are causing the tensions and the conflict that we are seeing now. And so this is a long-standing history of the human race, has been this fear of not being in control, of not being safe or having enough, which has led to these beliefs about different races not being as good as others, for example. And so what can we do about it? Well, for one thing, we can forgive ourselves for accepting ideas that are not really true. We can forgive ourselves for accepting what we were taught. The adults in our life had been programmed to see others differently, to judge, and to demean. And so we accepted that from the adults in our lives. And as we become adults and we become more spiritually aware, we can realize that we don't have to accept those beliefs. And in fact, it's a really good idea to take time to examine what we believe and think about, where did I learn that idea? Do I really believe that? As someone who is awakening spiritually, is that my truth? Do I truly believe that? So we can go through a period of self-questioning also as a part of our evolution into a higher spiritual understanding of our oneness with one another and the power of divine love to heal the hurts of the past and bring us together in harmony. There's a story in the Bible that has always fascinated me, and it is a story about actually an awakening for Jesus about prejudice. So we find this story in the chapter Matthew in chapter 15. And it is the story of a mother whose daughter was ill and dying. And she came to Jesus for help. A Canaanite woman from the region where Jesus and the disciples were traveling came and up to where Jesus was, and she started shouting out loud, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is demented by a demon." And we know when we read about demons that we believe that that means there was a mental health issue or emotional disturbance in the child. "Please help my daughter." But he did not answer her at all. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us." And he answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." And he answered, "It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." But she said, "Yes, Lord, even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." And in that moment, what she said to him obviously opened his eyes. And Jesus answered her and said, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed instantly. Now, obviously, this story is meant to be a lesson in faith. That here was a woman who was not of the Jewish faith, but she had great faith in Jesus anyway. She knew of the stories of his healing of so many people and even raising people from the dead. And even though she was from a different culture, she was a Canaanite. She was not Jewish. And so even then she came to him. And in those times, a lot of people from different tribes, different cultures, different religious beliefs did not interact with each other. And they looked down on one another. And so for her to come to Jesus, she had to come into a place of humility and say, "I'm going to this man from another religion, from another culture. I don't know if he will accept me." And certainly she did not get a warm welcome, either from the disciples or even from Jesus. And so for me, when I think about that moment when she says to me, "But Lord, even the dogs get to eat the crumbs under the table." I'm going to just let you mute this, and I'm going to take the other microphone. So in this story, she appeals to him, and his eyes were opened, and he remembered the truth. He came to himself. He had this realization that he was there not only to teach the lost tribe, the lost sheep of Israel, but also the people of all cultures and all tribes and all nations. I think that in that moment, his eyes were opened in a new way to understanding that the message he brought was for everyone. The message he brought was to heal those differences, to let everybody know that God loves every person, no matter their race, their religion, their culture, whatever seeming difference that is, we are all children of God. We are all an perfect expression of God life, no matter what form we take, no matter what religious path we have, no matter what our backgrounds are, our cultural traditions, no matter how we look physically or how we express ourselves. That we are all loved, we are all valuable, and we are all important. And if we look at this story, the word Gentile means one who is not Jewish, basically. You're not one of us. If someone is called a Canaanite or a Gentile, that means you are not one of us. And so Jesus was basically saying that to you, woman, I don't need to give you my attention and my caring because you're not a part of the tribe of Judaism. But she appealed to his heart. This idea too of the dogs, because dogs is a slang word really that was used for Gentiles or anyone who was not Jewish. And so when he says, he said, it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. Not fair to take this healing power that God is to children of another religion or another tribe or another country. And then she challenges him, but even the dogs get crumbs under the table. In that moment, I believe that his eyes were opened. Metaphysically, we can also see that story to mean that Gentile or Canaanite, or rather Gentile means worldly thoughts, thoughts of fear. She came in fear for her daughter's well-being. And so she was, because of that fear for her daughter, she was bold enough to stay and bold enough to keep asking until Jesus granted her desire to heal her daughter. A Canaanite metaphysically means one who is humble and receptive. She had to humble herself to come to this great master of another religion, another tribe, to ask for help. And so I believe that this shows an evolution for Jesus. And it was later that he would teach other examples of universal love, of universal value and worth of all people. There is the great story of the Good Samaritan. When Jesus was teaching, who are our brothers? If I am my brother's keeper, who are my brothers? And the Good Samaritan teaches us all people are our brothers and sisters. And there are other places where Jesus said, and especially after the resurrection, he said, go forth to all nations and teach the truth that I have shared with you. Take the good message that God loves you and wants you to have a happy and abundant life. And so there is this evolution that we are going through too. This evolution of examining our beliefs. Hopefully this evolution of looking at what our fears are so that we can overcome those fears with compassion and understanding as we grow, as we are humble and receptive to thinking, maybe that belief I was holding is not right. Maybe that's not what I should be thinking as an expression of God. If God loves all people and values all people and wants all people to be treated equally and to have opportunities, then maybe I should re-examine my thinking. And again, I've been inspired so much by the teachings of Martin Luther King, who of course promoted nonviolence. And he said, again, that prejudice and violence come from fear. And so we need to look at what are we afraid of? I remember after 9/11 saying to myself that I would not be afraid of all Middle Eastern people because of what had happened, because there are violent actors that are not representative of a religion or a culture or a race. And telling myself I will not be afraid of Muslims just because of what has happened. And the first time I saw a Middle Eastern looking person after that, I reacted in fear. That fear from the human self can be so strong and can overcome our loving tendencies, can overcome our wisdom and understanding. So it's good for us to be mindful. that we need to do some self-examination. So if nonviolence is something that we choose to do, and I certainly believe that that is if we are following spiritual principles, we know that nonviolence means not only avoiding physical violence, we have a slide, there we go, but also internal violence. What is internal violence? Self-criticism, self-attack, or thinking critical and demeaning thoughts of others, or speaking words too, based on that idea that we might be holding. Nonviolence means avoiding more than just physical violence, but internal, mental, and emotional violence. And only love can heal that misunderstanding that we have that leads to those violent thoughts. True pluralism is something too that I came across as I was thinking about and reading about nonviolence and finding peaceful solutions to our differences and difficulties. That pluralism is a word that describes accepting differences, celebrating differences, and honoring the differences that we have in a very positive, ways of genuine appreciation for one another's differences. True pluralism is more than just tolerance, more than just accepting the status quo. It is genuine listening to one another without judging, attacking, or defending, so we can get to know and understand each other. And that's what we are being called to do right now, is to take time to be brave, to be courageous, to make up our minds, to listen to others, and have our hearts and our minds open to conversing with others, talking with others, without defending or attacking or trying to be right, but just wanting to listen and say, why are you doing the things you're doing? Why do you say the things you do? And asking ourselves, why do I say what I say? Why do I do what I do? True pluralism is genuinely listening to one another without attacking or defending. It is only through getting to know each other, to understand each other, that we can let go of these prejudicial beliefs that we have, that we can let go of the fear that the other person is out to get us. When we all feel comfortable, when we all feel safe, when we all feel valued and important, when we all feel like we are equally loved and accepted, then we can begin to move forward in having harmony within our diversity. And so it's important that we take steps, and it doesn't have to be anything big. You know, one of the things that's being suggested now is to donate to a group that is working for civil rights, or that is working for better medical care for all, that is working for improving our economy so that we can get people back to work. So there are organizations that are doing great work, that are already in action, so we can donate to those. But on a very personal level, we can also find ways to connect with others as we search our hearts and we make that intentional decision to reach out and connect with others, to appreciate others. There are things that we can do. The next slide, please. So, for example, we can forgive ourselves for being afraid of those who are different from us, because that programming goes deep and we may not even want to do that, and we may be doing it unconsciously. And so when we're aware of when we're thinking of people in critical and demeaning ways, we can examine those thoughts. We can forgive ourselves for being afraid of those who are different from us. We can make eye contact and smile. And I've noticed that even with a mask on for the pandemic, when we smile with more than our mouth. We also smile with our eyes. We smile with our whole face. And if that smile is genuine and we are holding a compassionate energy, it will come across even though we're wearing a mask. So we can smile and greet others in a friendly manner. We can engage each other in friendly conversation. We can be kind to one another in small ways that begins to break down the walls between us. And so there are small things that we can do, but everything starts within examining, what do I believe? Why do I believe that? Who taught me that? Is it really true? If I go into prayer and meditation, if I listen to the Christ voice within me that says, love your neighbor, love even your enemies, and pray for those who persecute you. When we truly live the message of love that Jesus taught, we can examine those beliefs that are not producing harmony and equality in our world. And so these are some of the ways that we can take small steps. It all begins on the inside of us. It all begins on us being willing to be truly honest with ourselves and honest with others, and that we can have conversations, civil conversations, that are genuinely about understanding one another. So I'd like to close with a prayer that I found, and it's a Cherokee prayer. And it says, "O Great Spirit, help us to always, O Great Spirit, help me always to speak the truth quietly, to listen with an open mind when others speak, and to remember the peace that may be found in the silence." And we need to practice prayer and meditation every day just to deal with the pandemic and with the economic crisis and with the tensions we're feeling from being cooped up so much, and with trusting our guidance as things open up again. There's so many things going on at once. But we know that as we go inside in prayer and meditation and align with that power of divine love within us, that anything in our hearts or minds that need to be healed or released can be released through the power of love. And that is what Martin Luther King taught us, that the power of love is stronger than the power of hate. And that power of love is active within each one of us. And so I invite you to look at ways that you might be committed to being more and more of an expression of divine love here and now in this critical moment in our spiritual unfolding as a human race. And so it is. God bless you. Namaste.
We now affirm our abundance with our offering affirmation song. Our homeless outreach team delivers food to the hungry and homeless every Saturday, using healthy precautions as they serve those in need. And they've actually figured out a way to be able to get some clothing to them again. So we are definitely looking for donations for clothes, and we need those plastic bags so we can keep the things separated as we give them out. Thank you. Our Sacred Sounds meditation includes the soothing tones of the crystal and Tibetan bowls, along with a guided meditation. Reverend Virginia leads the service on Wednesdays at 7. Our practical metaphysical class meets on Skype on Thursdays from 1 to 3. Reverend Virginia leads this discussion about unity beliefs. Today, we honor and support Gay Pride Month by recognizing Gilbert Baker, gay rights activist, Army veteran, and artist who volunteered with many gay rights groups. He may be best known as the designer of the gay rights rainbow flag. Thank you, Gilbert, for giving us so much for so many.
Thank you, Mindy. Thank you, Mindy. We are preparing to reopen and with limited seating and other safety precautions. And so our expected opening date is July 5th. So please stay tuned for progress and check on our website, and also the emails that will be going out will be telling you more about that. Thank you for your interest in coming back and your patience in our preparations. We want to make sure that our facility is safe and comfortable for you when you return. We will be having a celebration of life here for Virginia and Don Wilson's son, John, Saturday, June 20th at 1 p.m. Virginia Wilson, also known as Ginger, is a founding member of this ministry and was our first youth ministry director. Our prayers are with Ginger and her family at this time. Our prayers are also with Mary Vathy and her family following the transition of her sister Ada. And we are holding them in our prayers also for peace and comfort. We are very grateful for your donations to our ministry that keep us strong. We appreciate your support very much, which helps us to continue with all of our programs here, including our homeless outreach and our prayer ministry and all of our classes and, of course, our services that allow us to learn more about these wonderful principles and remind us to keep practicing them. We are so grateful for your support that keeps us strong through this challenging time. You can go to our website to donate, and you can also sign up there for the newsletter. And there's also a mailing address if you would like to send in a donation as well. So with that in mind, we want to give thanks for our offering, for all of those donations that we have been receiving. We are so very grateful. Thank you for your continuing support through this interesting time. So we join together giving thanks for that offering, knowing that it symbolizes that infinite supply of God that is always blessing us, that is always there ready to flow forth into our lives as we are ready to receive it. We know that there is always more than enough of all good for all people at all times. We bless this offering, given in love, recognizing that one and only infinite source, and dedicate this offering to the work and the teachings of the Christ. And so it is. Amen. So Marian now has a closing song for us, reminding us of our spiritual identity.